Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Masechtas Menachot daf Lamed Gimel. We are going to begin on Lamed Beis, Amud Beis, about 7 lines from the bottom. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, Kosva Igeris Psula. So let's go straight into Rashi. Rashi says, if let's say you would write it below Sirtut, which we said in yesterday's daf, actually on the same Amud, we said that the halacha was that tefillin does not require these etchings, the sirtut, but the mezuzah does. So if you would write it without sirtut, it would be puzzle. My taima, asik siva, because when a gzer shava, mesefer, what is that? It says uksavtem al mezuzois in v'kosav la sefer krisos. Inami kosav zois sikarin mesefer ma sefer boy. Dikduk av mezuzah boy dikduk. Okay, so over here the focus is not so much on sirtut, but the fact that it has to be precise. As Rashi says, if lo dikdek bechiseros yaseros ki geras ba'almi. You just start writing a letter, like texting nowadays. So you actually have to write it in a very clean, clear way without any mistakes. Otherwise, it's puzzle. Can't write it like just an informal, relaxed letter. Rabbi Yehuda Shmuel, he says another din, that tal b'makol psul. Let's say you take the mezuzah and you attach it to a stick, and then with that stick you put it onto the Pesach. So by taima, it's b'sharecha be'inan, because it needs to be affixed to the doorpost, and therefore that's not okay. It says v'shekava b'kaisel achori hadelas. It's okay. It's not good. Tanya Mahachi. Let's say you hang the mezuzah, attach it to a stick, but not on the doorpost itself. Oshanicha achar delas, you put it behind the door, sakana. In that case, it could actually be dangerous. As Rashi shekava b'kaisel achar delas, what's the sakana? It's sakana min hamazikin. So the mezuzah is supposed to protect us from mazikin. Over here, the mezuzah is not going to protect you until it's done on the proper way, kehilchasa, which we're going to discuss exactly what that is. So the ein mitzvah, it's not a mitzvah. Shal beis munbaz hamelach hayoisin bepundekun koisehen, that he used to cane. It says punduk hainu beis bayis shalonu boy oivdi drachim. There's a place where people that traveled by, like these like inns, like these bed and breakfast, v'derech, the ein chayam mezuzah. So these are like more temporary. The lav diras keva, who nonetheless he would still do this anyway. As we're going to see later in the next parak, in parak techeles, it says that a person who lives in a punduk in Eretz Yisrael, kol shleishim yoyim, the first just for within 30 days is patim mezuzah. However, base munbaz hamelach, when people were traveling on the road, he would also have the mezuzahs with them, and they would hang it up on a stick on the door until the morning. Zeichel mezuzah, lefishol hoya darn lo oyom diras keva el hoya chayim ir b'malchusay. So he used to always travel. So even though maybe it wasn't mechuyev in a mezuzah, but he put it there was zikaron. Okay, zeichel mezuzah. The question is that required, or is there a purpose of that? Okay. Mitzvah nicha b'toy chalol shel Pesach. So it's a mitzvah to put the mezuzah on the inside airspace of the doorway. And what does that mean? It says Rashi v'lo b'mechutz. It shouldn't be outside. It has to be on the inside of the door. So pshita b'sharecha im rachman. It's got to be in your gate. As we continue on Amud Aleph, it's a mitzvah to place it b'tefach hasomuch rishus harabim, within a tefach closer to the rishus harabim. Let's say you have a very wide door, so you should put it within a tefach closer to the rishus harabim. So when people come from the rishus harabim, they will encounter as we'll see on Amud Beis, the mezuzah right away. So kamad marchik mali. You would think the more that you distance it away from it, the better, and therefore maybe it could be on the outside. Okay, kamashman. V'yam Yehuda Shmuel kosva al shnei dapin psula. Now the way the Rashi reads this is chetzi b'dav zeh v'chetzi b'dav zeh, which means it's on 2 separate columns. Taisa says over here it's b'shtei chatichos kaimer. That's on two totally separate pieces of parchment. So you wrote the mezuzah on two parchments or on two different columns. Our minhag is it should just be one straight column. It's possible. So meisvei kosval shnei dapin. Let's just read it the way Rashi says it. On two columns. Vanicha mishnei sifin. Rashi says mishnei mezuzah shel Pesach. It's put on two doorposts. Psula. Ha besaf echak shera. It's mashma that if you would put it on one, it's kosher. Royal shnei sifin kaimer. It just means it's something which fit to go on two different doors because it's on two. It's just reading Taisus. It's like in two different pieces. We go after the hinge. So when you have a door, we always look at going. Where do you put the mezuzah? You always put on the right side, entering into a room. So what my heker seer? What is that telling us about a hinge? Just put it on the right side. So Rab Ada Avata Hechidam, you can gain Pischa Debein Trei Bati. Let's say you have an opening that goes between two rooms. Bein Begavri, fine. So in that situation, Kigain Pischa the Trei Bati Begavri Uve Nashi, between men and women. Lebein Nashi Resh Galusa Bana Besa. Anyway, so basically what it's saying is you have two rooms, and let's say there's an entrance to go in. There's two openings. Let's say it's a duplex, if you will. So there's two front doors, so you can go into this living room, and there's a shared door in between to connect these two houses, if you will. So now, if you're going this way, the right side, you put the mezuzah, but the people from this side would put them on the other side. So you don't put a mezuzah on both sides. So in that case, you go buster the heker tzir, where the hinge is. So therefore, that's where the door hangs, is where you put the mezuzah. Okay, that's what it's referring to. Omerli Rav Nachman Kavuli Mezuzta. So he's mentioned about, I'm going to hang up my mezuzah. Rav Nachman Tali Dasha Bereisha. So he said, go and hang it first. Says Rashi, Himid Hasifa Bebinyan Tchila V'yachachach Kavinhu Hamezuzos. That you should first have the doors, the doorpost, everything all set, and then only afterwards you should put up the mezuzah. The chsiv, as it says by tzitzis, as well as by sukkah, the chsiv ba tasvam and asoy. So it has to be that everything has to be already mechuyev in a mezuzah, and then you can put the mezuzah up. However, if you put the mezuzah up first, and then afterwards you fix up the whole house, right? You frame the doorpost, then that's considered to be tasvam and asoy, and therefore you did not do the mitzvah properly. Okay, fine. Omer Rabbi Yehuda Omer Rav. This is a very famous Gemara. Also kamin neger psula. If you make the mezuzah, if you hang it up like a bolt, then it's puzzle. So we're going to see. Says Rashi, shekava v'tachva b'saf keneged shechaytvin kenigrin b'kaisel kazeh. Okay. And it's a little bit confusing because there's two pictures over here, kazeh, right? So it says psula de mitzvasa letata ba'oirich hatzaf kazeh. It's supposed to be in the length. Ba'oirich again. The mitzvasa lesita ba'oirich batzaf kazeh neger kibila. So you can see one is this way and one is that way. Okay. So we'll get this. So any v'haki also Ravin. So the question is, what is a neger? What is it this way or is it that way? Couldn't get to in a second. So he says neger is pasula. I v'haki also Rav Yitzchak bar Yosef Aimer Kuhu mezuzta deme Rabbi. Every time you look at the mezuzas that are in this guy's house, Kimin Neger Havi Avdinon, right? He put them just like a bolt. So how could you say it's puzzle? So vahi pischa de ayil be Rabbi lebei midrasha lo yahavi mezuzah, and this particular entrance didn't have a mezuzah. So lokasha hadavida kesichta hadavia ke istavira. So one is you make it like a peg, if you will, and one is like the ankle joint of a foot. All right, so what exactly does that mean? So this is where the machlokas Rashi Taisus comes. So what does it mean? As Rashi says, avida kesichta. If you have a neger kishaimrim kazeh pasul. So if you have it in this fashion, straight up, then it's pasul. Lashon acher istavira ki heichde b'makom chibur hashuk v'regel, just like your ankle, havi hashuk zokuf milamala, your foot goes up, v'haregel shaychev, and your foot is lying down kizeh, kach hanichal mezuzah kshera, then it's okay. Because one part is straight. Okay, so this is the interesting machlokas that we see, that according to Rashi, and Taisus disagrees. Taisus, Perish Mekuntris, the Sichta Psula, Avistra Makam Chibur Hashuk V'Haregel Mu'umid Hu Kshera, so that's kosher. V'Hashta Ben Mu'umid Ben Mushgav Tervaihu Mikri Kimin Neger. So he says that if it's up or down, it's always like this bolt. And Taisus has problems with it. So if you skip down a little bit, Taisus says, Lefi Rabbeinu Tam de Istira de Kshera Hainu Alkasain Loishayche V'Zokov Inami Kimin Nun Mechse Shayche V'Mechse Zokov. The Chaim Perish Mekuntris Lashon Acher of Asher Mezusta the Alma Lav Hachi Avintan Le Perish Rabbeinu Tam Havin Miyushav. So he says it's like lying down. Lefi Perish Mekuntris Mu'umad. So we see this machlokes. Is it supposed to be zokuf, straight? Is it supposed to be mu'umad, like standing? Or is it supposed to be lying down, right? So that is the shaila. And the Ramah, interestingly, says what we should do is you should put a plant in a slanted position. So you're kind of a machriya to both of these opinions, which is a very interesting idea. So is if this is the right way to put the mezuzah this way? If it's like this, do it that way. So the point the Ramah is telling us is that whenever you go into a house, you should always look at the mezuzah, right? The very opening of the house. And you should remember that it's slanted, which means we don't always have to go like this or like this. We can find a middle ground, a compromise in between two opinions, and that's how a person is supposed to conduct themselves as well when it comes to being in a home. Okay. So anyway, that's the famous Machlekes Rashi and Taisus over here. Okay. Lebei midrasha v'havi lo mezuzah hahu regel havi diyam Rabbi Yehuda Amarav mezuzah hayilchacha haragil. You go after what is more common. What does that mean? It says Rashi, Yimyesh beis psachim, and there's two openings, l'cheder aleph, to one room, but oisa pesach sharagil lotzeis lava yosi aniach mezuzah. So the question is, do you put it this way? You have to go, what's the more common room to go through? And therefore that's the reason why he put it on the right side, facing the room in which he usually would go into. So that was the room that he was more accustomed to. Okay. Omer Rav Zera Imer Rav Masna Imer Shmuel Mitzvah Hanicha B'Tchilos Shlisha Elyon, that you should divide the doorpost into three parts, and the mezuzah should be on the top third, but it should be on the bottom part of the top third of the door. Rav Huna Omer Magbiyam in a karka tefach It just has to be. It doesn't have to be mamish in that area, as long as it's above a tefach from the ground. It should be not all the way to the very top of the roof, but it should be at least of the door. But it should at least be a tefach below. Chol pesach kula kosher. So it's much more lenient opinion. Meisvei magbiyam in a karka tefach. So it says you lift it up from the ground tefach. Marchik min a koyer tefach. It should release the tefach from there. The chol pesach kul kosher mezuzah. That's what Rabbi Yehuda says. Rabbi Yosef Aimer, it says like this: Ukshartem uksavtem. There's a mitzvah about tefillin. There's a mitzvah about mezuzah. So makshira, just like when it comes to the tefillin, it's begoiva. When you put the tefillin on your head, as Rashi says, makam shemoicha yishal tinik roifes. So you put it in the place, which you're going to actually see in a few blot and daf lamed zayin, which is where it's soft over here. It's over here, but we're talking about the tefillin. So the frontal lobe, this area, is very soft on an infant. That's where you're supposed to put the tefillin. So av ksiva begoiva. So too, it should be on the higher part of the door. So Bishlam Rav Huna Hudi Yemer Rabbi Yehuda. El Lishmol Yemer Kaman. Look Rabbi Yehuda Rav Yosi. Some Rav Huna Bereda Rav Nasan Oilam Rav Yosi. Really, I'll hold like the sheet of Rav Yosi, who says this drasha ukshartem uksavtem. Umay, what does he mean when it says? What does he mean? It means techila shlish elyain. Right? It doesn't mean all the way to the top. It just means the top third, right? So that's still above. Dekaimer laharchika shol harchika min hakaira shel ma'ila yosem shlish. That when you distance it shouldn't from the roof. It shouldn't be more than a third. In other words, it should be the top third, but again, usually on the bottom of that top third. Omer Rava mitzvah hanicha b'tevach hasamachim shus harabim. This is going to be question 8. Madua mitzvah hanicha b'mezuzah b'tefach samachim shus harabim. Why? Let's say again you have this very wide door, which could be many amos, that you should put the mezuzah closer to when you're walking into the city. So my time, Rabbanan Amri Kadei Sheyifka Mezuzah Miyad. So this way, while you're walking, you'll immediately encounter the mezuzah. Rav Chanina Masor Aimer Kihechi Ditin Tere, so that it will protect you. Says Rashi Chol Habayis Min Hamazikin. So this way, if it's right on the outside, like just like the first tefach, if you will, so therefore it protects everything inside. Come and see Hashem acts in a very different way than other kings. Why is that? Or it says Va'avadav on the side. So you have bodyguards. So you're in the inside and you're protected with all these walls and bodyguards on the outside. Avadav Yoshim Bifnim. Again, that's why it has this gear set. It has the word Avadav Yoshim Bifnim. We are Hashem's servants, and we're on the inside. And Hashem protects us from the outside, right? Usually the king is we're the one protecting the king. Here, Hashem, the king, is protecting us. Hashem Shomrecha, Hashem Silcha Al Yad Yaminecha. Al Yad Yaminecha is alluding to the mezuzah, which is on the right side. Darish Rav Yosef Bereda Rava Mishmeda Rava Himik La Tefach Psula. If let's say you have a hole inside the doorpost, if you put it more than a tefach in, that's possible, because it has to be mamish on the doorpost, not inside. Let's say a person has places it on a beam. Oh, shetol aleha molavin. He hangs it on. Says Rashi, levana shliach shekava mezuzah. After you already put up the mezuzah, you add this extra piece opposite the door. If it's a tefach sarach mezuzah acheres. So then you need another mezuzah. If, in other words, basically it's two doors. If there's a tefach between them, you need another mezuzah. If not, you don't need it. So I'm talking about an opening in the back of the door. So therefore, it's not has nothing. I'm not talking about a tefach in that door, inside the inside. It's talking about a second door. So we already learned that. As we said, if there's between the doors a tefach sarach mezuzah acheres, because they're like a separate door. The imlav in sarach mezuzah acheres. So we already learned this. So Ketzad Katani, Tana ha'emid le'mol. So Ketzad Katani Tana ha'emid la malabin shel kanim. Okay, so that's basically the question. So, and the answer is like that. So Tana ha'emid la malabin shel kanim. Let's say you have these reeds. So chaytech shafay feres, and you cut out an indentation, a menicha, and you put it in there. In other words, if let's say the door is made out of these reeds, so you can cut a little cut into the reed and you can put the mezuzah in there. So Rav Acha Berei the Rav Voloshanu El Shehimid El Masayv Chatach, that it was already established and built in as a door, even though the door can be made out of reeds, but it had to have already been a door. V'hanicha Avol Chatach V'niach. Let's say you put in the reeds. You put it in the reed first, right? You put the mezuzah in the reed, v'haniach, and the little saiv hemid, and then you made it into a door, psula, because as we said before, tasum and asui. So it has to be that the door was already there, and then afterwards you built around. You end up putting the mezuzah up. Yomarava hani pisri shamai. These incomplete doors are paturin min mezuzah. So my pisri shamoi. This is TA 12. As well as TB15. So pligi bo Rav Richumi, the Abi Yosi. Chad Oimer Deleslahu Tikra doesn't have a roof. The Chad Oimer Deles, rather Deleslahu Shikufi. It doesn't have posts. Omer Rabba Barshil Omer Rav Chista Achsadra Patur Min Mezuzah. An Achsadra does not need a mezuzah. Shakvi, by the way, Rashi says, is mezuzahs, or doorposts, or tikra shein habayis makura. Okay, fine. So when it comes to a chsadra, Rashi says it has shloish dafanos. There's 3 walls, smuchais, stumos, they're all closed up, below pesach, but there's no door. Revius pesucha legamri, and the 4th is completely open, mitachas. There's a small door. Okay. Hamachzikes haschach. Okay. So it holds up the roof. So, it's potter because there's no beams. If there were beams, chayiv. Let's get this again. So again, achsadra patum min mezuzah lefi she'ein lo b'simen ha yesh lo b'simen chayav l'chizik tikra hu davidi. So hachikamer. So what do you mean? It's not really anything. It shouldn't work because they're only there to hold up the roof. So hachikamer avol bi she'esh lo b'simen, even does have beams patura shenosun el chizik hatikra, because the whole purpose of those b'simen are only to support the roof. Okay, Omer Abaya. No, they're not like separate doorposts. Omer Abaye chazinulhu leis palidi debeimar deisluhu pesimi. They had these posts. V'leisulhu mezusta. There was no mezuzah. Savar v'chizik tikrahu davidi. Again, as we said, the reason why I didn't require mezuzah, even though it had these posts, they were only there to support the roof. Meisvei bayishar chsadum arfasas chayavnu mezuzah. This is also Gemara in Sukkah. So it says that all these different things do require mezuzah, including an exadra. So it's a question right there, right? So it says it is chayiv. So mezuzah. So b'achsadra debei rav ke'in durna mal yasahu. So what are we saying? That we're talking about this different type of echsadra. Let's look in Rashi. Says to Beirav, sheish ladal defanais, because this actually has 4 sides. It's just that it doesn't reach the roof, but nonetheless, that also would constitute a mezuzah, requiring mezuzah, right? So this had 4 walls. That's the distinction. Fine. So it's not like an exadra. Be'achsadram yasahu be'achsadram ram yasa. That's why she says asuyi chilonois. They have like windows. Okay. Omer Rachva Omer Rabbi Huda Bei Harziki, which we'll see what that is chayiv b'shtei mezuzos. You need 2 mezuzos for that. So my Bei Harziki, what is that referring to? So Ram Papa Sama Mishmei Derav Bias Beishar. It's a gateway hapatuach l'chatzer that's open up to a courtyard. Ubatim pesuchim l'beishar, and there's homes that are opening up to this gateway. So each door needs its own mezuzah. So that's what it's referring to. Tanabana. Beishar, if you have a gatehouse, hapasuach l'gina, that's open up to a garden, kinyais, which is like the house. Rav Yosi Oimer nidain kitainis. It has the same din as the house. The gatehouse, even though it opens up to the garden, which doesn't need a mezuzah, but the house does, so it has the din like a house that needs a mezuzah. It's like the gatehouse itself does not need a mezuzah. Rabbi Shmuel Yom Tavayu Migina Labayis Kol Yamu Pligadechayev. If in fact somehow it's connected to the house, so then you do need a mezuzah. My time Abia Dabayasi. It's the door opens to the house. Keep pligi mebais lagina. Mar savar kitonius ikr, that is made for the house, so it needs a mezuzah. Mar savar gina ikri, it's part ikr. The gina is the main thing, therefore it's potter. Rav Yosef Tavayu mibayis lagina, from the house to the garden. Lokol pligi the potter. My time piska ginahu, because it's connected to the garden. Keep pligi megina labayis, wherever it's going to the house. Mar savar bia the biasu, so it needs. Mar savar kula. As we continue to Amud Aleph, Kula Arta Digina Hu Diavida. It's actually for the garden spotter. By Abdi Karaba, Rav Yosef Ravashi Abdi Karav Bishmul L'chomra, V'hilchos Karav Bishmul L'chomra. So it actually goes strict, as Rashi says up here, Umatzrach Mezuz L'Turvayu, require mezuz for both. The Sfirli Karav Yosi, that we will hold like the Shita of Rav Yosi. Adkan.